Hello friends, welcome back. Susan Sloop, University of Illinois Extension, here with you for the last time. This is our last time coming together to talk about archaeology. You have been digging into your summer reading and we've been digging into archaeology. We have looked at artifacts, we've created petroglyphs, we've talked about hieroglyphs, we've talked about pictographs. Oh my goodness, we've talked about a lot over these 5 weeks. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what it is to be an archaeologist. Well, an archaeologist is a scientist who studies the people of the past. They are a scientist that looks at the things that people leave behind, that gives clues about what they did, how they survived, how they lived, how they used the land, how they interacted with each other. And you'll see in the video that I'm going to show you about what an archaeologist does is that sometimes we get archaeology confused with paleontology. And paleontology studies dinosaurs. And sometimes we think that maybe an archaeologist is digging for dinosaur bones. And that's an easy thing to get confused because what they're doing looks very similar, but what they're searching for and what they're studying is very different. A paleontologist is a scientist that studies that would be looking for dinosaur bones. An archaeologist would be studying and looking for things from the past that people have left behind. So, good thing to keep in mind as you think about the different scientists and studying things from the past. So let's take a look at the video, and when we come back, we're going to create a time capsule. And I'm going to show you something that I discovered I had, and I didn't even realize it. All right, we'll see you in a minute.
We talk a lot around here about different kinds of living things, ones that are alive today and ones that lived in the past. But do you know one living thing that scientists are always interested in learning more about? People. People have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and human life has changed a lot in that time. How do we know? Well, a lot of what we know about how people lived in the past comes from what they've left behind. These things that were made or used by people in the past are called artifacts. Artifacts can be really old, like the stone tools that early humans used. Or they can be not very old at all, like some cans that people tossed away just 50 years ago. No matter how old they are, there are scientists whose job it is to find and study these artifacts. They're called archaeologists, and they help us learn more about human history. So how do they do what they do? Well, mostly they dig. Archaeologists are different from paleontologists who also do a lot of digging. Paleontologists study natural history and dig up fossils, but archaeologists study human history and dig up artifacts. Archaeologists spend a lot of time digging where they think they might find important historical objects or artifacts. But how do they know where to dig? If they have an idea of where they might find artifacts, they'll visit the spot and perform something called a survey. A survey is when archaeologists look for clues on the ground, like old or broken pieces of artifacts that suggest more cool artifacts might be underground waiting to be discovered. The archaeologists mark these spots with little flags. These are spots where they'll excavate or dig looking for clues. But sometimes archaeologists need to see the bigger picture when they're learning about a place. So they also survey places by looking at them from the sky. Hundreds of miles up in space, satellites are used by archaeologists to take pictures of places that might have buried buildings or the ruins of other structures that you can't see from the ground. Closer to Earth, some archaeologists use remote-controlled flying machines with cameras on them. By flying up just a few meters or so, these machines can give scientists a bird's-eye view of where there used to be something like a house or maybe a whole village. Once archaeologists have found the place they'd like to explore, it's time to get digging. But archaeologists don't just dig in these spots however they want. They carefully map out the whole area they want to explore. so they don't damage artifacts in the ground, and so they know exactly where they found them. And they do that by using grids. A grid is a design that breaks a section of the ground into small squares. These squares are usually marked with rope and string. Grids help archaeologists keep track of the different artifacts that they uncover. Each object they find is labeled with a grid number, and then its location is mapped, so archaeologists can remember exactly where each artifact came from. And when they're digging, archaeologists use all sorts of different tools, from spoons and brushes to shovels and even digging machines like bulldozers. So once an archaeologist is done surveying and digging for the day, what's next? It's time to go to the lab. The lab is where archaeologists get a close-up look at the things they've uncovered. There, they start to make guesses about who might have made the artifacts, what they were used for, and when in history they might be from. These are the steps that archaeologists use to study how people lived all over the world. Some archaeologists, for example, study ancient Egypt, discovering tombs where people were buried and learning about how the pyramids and other buildings were built thousands of years ago. Other archaeologists want to learn more about the people who built amazing old structures in places from England to the American Southwest. But lots of archaeologists study ordinary, everyday people in the past to see what their lives were like, whether it was a family of farmers in Europe 1,000 years ago, or workers who built railroads in the United States just 150 years ago. In a way, archaeologists are sort of like detectives, digging into the earth to see what questions they can answer about our history, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. Thanks for learning about archaeologists with us, and remember, if you have a question about anything you'd like to learn more about, just let us know by getting help from a parent and leaving a comment below, or emailing us at kids@thescishow.com. And we'll see you next time.
Hi, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed learning more about what an archaeologist does. And maybe through the weeks that we have been together, it has piqued your interest in the science of archaeology, and you would like to become the scientist who studies archaeology. Maybe you want to become an archaeologist. Who knows? All right, so now we are going to talk about a time capsule, and you can create a time capsule. What is a time capsule? Well, it's kind of like what it sounds. It is something that has items inside that would reflect a period of time or are from a certain event in time. I know that when I was in high school, my class, we made a class time capsule. That was something we did. And so everyone put something into this metal box, and we actually buried it in the yard outside our school. So that's a time capsule that, we could go and dig up one day, or someone will. It would be fun for us to, just to look and see what remember those things that we put in there. So for your family time capsule, or for your personal time capsule, you're going to need to find something to put your items in. You don't have to bury a time capsule in the yard to find later. Really, the fun thing about a time capsule is putting it somewhere where you have access to it, and maybe just don't open it for a couple of years. So when you go back to look, you can look at those memories. Time capsules can be in all different shapes and sizes, and I'll show you a couple of ideas. If you look on Pinterest, I know we all love Pinterest, but if you look on Pinterest, they have oh my goodness, there are so many different ways you could make a time capsule. But I want to show you something I found that I didn't realize was a time capsule at the time. I didn't realize I was making a time capsule, but I was. And I found this box. This is a box I have had since I was in elementary school. And there are things inside of this box that are from that time period, from time when I was in elementary school, some things from middle school, and some things from high school. And so let me show you some things that are in here. And I think that you'll find it interesting that one thing that is not in here, there is not one picture in here, not one photograph. Now, does that mean your time capsule shouldn't have a photograph? No. If you have If you've been somewhere and you take a picture and you really want to include it in your time capsule, sure, you can do that. Just make sure you maybe make a note on it about what it is. So when you go to look at it later, you don't forget what that picture is about. But let me show you some of the things that are in this time capsule, and I think you'll find them interesting. I know I did. But here's the first thing. This is, what does that look like to you? What do those look like? Yes, they're glasses. These are my very first pair of glasses. Well, you can see the sides are gone. They're broken off. But what's left are the frames and the lenses. So this was my first pair of glasses. And what I remember about these, other than they're my first pair, is that my very best friend, Tracy, and I both had the same glasses. And we both, I remember taking pictures with her with our glasses on. So that is one thing that's in here. I'll show you another thing that's in here that you might find interesting, especially if you're from the area. I went to junior high in Casey, and I was a Casey Bulldogs cheerleader. Casey Bulldogs, the junior high at the time were the Casey Bulldogs. So this is actually, this might be worth vintage, right? You're not going to see this around anymore. So I was a Casey Bulldogs cheerleader. I also found a letter for softball. Anyway, from Casey. So this is in there. So this brings back memories for me. That's what this box does for me. That's what your time capsule does. It captures those memories for you. I have a lot of fun memories with my friends cheering at basketball games. And so that was a lot of fun for me. Something else that's in here are ticket stubs to a concert that I went to. And this was actually when I was in high school. I went to a concert with my now husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend at the time. So that's a fun thing. You can put ticket stubs in your time capsule. Another thing I have in here, which is kind of insignificant really, but it brings back memories for me, is I used to collect these little buttons. You can see this button. And this is a band I liked. I liked a band called The Police. And so I had one of those buttons. So that brings back memories for me. A time capsule brings back memories. And so I can pull these items out and I can tell you about them. Here is, this is from my high school graduation. So when I graduated from Terre Haute South, and we all wore these ribbons with the medallions on them. So this brings back memories. I remember my high school graduation. I remember being with my friends. That's what a time capsule does. And what you'll think about time capsules too is, well, you might look in here and think this just looks like a bunch of junk. To me, it's a memory. And here's a really good example of that. This is in my time capsule from my junior high years. And you might think, what is that? That just looks like a raggedy ribbon. It's all smashed. What is this? Well, to you, or to a lot of people, you would look at it and think, well, why don't you just throw that away? But to me, this is a memory. And this memory is from when I was a cheerleader, of course, the orange ribbon. And my grandfather died. And I can remember the cheerleaders sent me some flowers at that time. It was a very sad moment in my life, but this also reminds me of the friendships that I had during that time to help me get me through it. So that went in my time capsule. So the time capsule, the things that you put in them help you remember that moment in time. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can make a time capsule, and then you have to decide what moment in time you want to capture in the capsule. So this is one idea that I have around my house, and this is I don't play tennis, but my dog loves to play fetch. So this is from a container that tennis balls come in. And tennis balls are not very expensive, so this is not an expensive item at all. So this would be a good sturdy item for a time capsule. And it's also not very big. If you think that over time, you're going to collect these time capsules and be able to pull them out and look at them, then you might not want something that's very big to store. So this is a good idea. But what I would do is I would take a piece of paper and wrap it around the outside so you can't really see what's in it, because that's half of the fun, opening it up. Then you could wrap that around there. You can tape it on, and then you could decorate it. You could write specifically what this time capsule is capturing. Is this a trip that you took last year? Is it this summer? Is it your 4th grade year in school? Maybe you decide to put some things in here to remember your 4th grade year. Another container I use that's very similar in shape and size to this tennis ball container is a Pringles can. Okay, I've already wrapped it with paper, but you can see the red at the top. So this is just an empty Pringles container that I have cleaned out. All the crumbs are out. I wiped it out. So this is another good thing you can use for a time capsule. I've also seen you could just use a shoe box. Now I had the wooden box, but it doesn't have to be wooden. But what kind of things could I put in my time capsule? Okay, so I'm going to look at, I went on a trip. We actually went on a trip in February, and we went to a beach vacation with my family. So I could take some of the seashells that I found, because we always have these, right? And then we come back and go, what am I going to do with these seashells? Well, take a few of them and put them in a time capsule, because I remember, and when I pull these out, I'll have that memory of walking on the beach, looking for the seashells, and thinking about how much fun I was having at that time. And then I also have, because the beach that we went to happened to be in Mexico, I have some money from Mexico to put in there. And because I can't spend it here, right? Okay. And then I have an extra key to our hotel room. I can put that in there. That's a fun thing to put in there. So those are just some examples. I might even, a really good idea is to write down some memories. You can just use an index card. You could think of some questions that you want to answer about what was your favorite thing about this trip? What did you do that was fun? Did you do something that you'd never done before? I did on this trip. I went snorkeling. I'd never gone snorkeling before. So that's something that I could capture on an index card and write it and put it in there. You could write down some things that you were thankful for during that trip. I was thankful for the time that I got to spend with my family together. And just for the time to relax and see the beautiful ocean. All of those things you could write down and put in. You can write some notes. So think about what's going on right now. You could think about, well, the summer of 2020 is a little different. And, you know, while we have good and bad things, we can put in memories of every time period. We know that some things are challenging, and so this time is really challenging. So I'm hoping that we can put this mask in this time capsule, and next summer it's a distant memory for us, that we're not worried about that anymore. Maybe we have some headlines from the newspaper that we cut out and we put into our time capsule, because the summer 2020 will be one that you will go back to and you will remember it for a while. So you might go ahead and think about making a time capsule of the summer of 2020. And those are just some things that you could start that time capsule with. You could write down how you're feeling. What happened? What did you do differently this summer? You maybe spent more time with your family. Maybe you went out in the backyard and you camped in your backyard instead of going to a campground because you couldn't do that yet. Maybe you looked for lightning bugs and you hadn't done that in a long time. Maybe you made your own sidewalk chalk. Maybe you painted your windows and told all those essential workers thank you. So think about the good things that happened in summer of 2020 and put them in there as well. So it's a way to capture all those memories, all that period of time into your time capsule. But the fun thing about this time capsule is it's yours and you make it what you think it needs to be. Have fun with it. Make that time capsule, that family time capsule together. Well, our time together, speaking of time, is over. I have enjoyed being with you these past 6 weeks, and I hope that you have enjoyed these videos as I'm making them in my home by myself. I appreciate your watching and support, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person and getting to do some more fun things with the library. So until then, I hope you're well and stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.